unless it stands alone.
Ben, what the hell are you talking about?
You can't fight destiny, Sharon. It catches up with you, no matter what you do. Don't worry about us. We'll see you again. We love you, Sharon. And we always will.
Good day, and welcome to the season finale of BattleSpace Nine, episode 14. Today featuring Deep Space Nine's episode Rapture and Battlestar Galactica's Kobol's Last Gleaming, part 2. I'm Carl, and here are our guests.
Hi, this is Jake Skeltrito. I am the one of the hosts of A Star to Steer Her By, and I'm happy to be here.
And this is Ames Lermit, another host of A Star to Steer Her By. Which has featured Carl a whole bunch.
I really do owe a lot to A Star to Steer Her By. It was only kind of by being on your show that I started thinking about whether I could do something like this. I got to be on your show to talk about Deep Space Nine a lot, and
mostly the bad episodes.
Sort of
We're so
fun.
sorry.
That was my niche, yeah. But now you're in Voyager Town, and how's life treating you there?
So far, so good. We're right at the end of season 4, maybe just having begun season 5. We're really getting into the good stuff, I think, at this point. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm enjoying Voyager thoroughly, and I also know like our co-hosts Chris and Caitlin, who've been here on BS9 before, went into Voyager not thinking they would have a good time, and I think they're having a good time.
I like the era you're at for Voyager myself, because I think 7 of 9 not only improves the show with her character, but I think having her around is helpful for Janeway's character.
Oh yeah.
The thing about Janeway is she thrives on a challenge, and the ship has, despite being a fourth Maquis, the ship's crew has not really challenged her that much. But 7 of 9 will.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's kind of fun to watch her be the wayward parent to 7.
Yeah, it does make me miss Kes. I did enjoy Kes a lot as a character, but what are you gonna do?
I am of the age that like Voyager's weakest episodes were probably happening during Deep Space Nine's best, and Next Gen was like Holy Writ at that point, having just ended. I don't think Voyager got a fair shake with a lot of people my age, partly because I was sort of tired of Star Trek at that point. I wanted to go into cooler shows. Like 90210 or something.
Ooh, wow.
But,
very cool. I was still watching Voyager and enjoying it, but I think part of what it suffered from maybe would have been being on UPN.
Right.
And like I just think people had a hard time finding that channel.
That's true. Our theme today is Visions.
Ooh.
The episode of Deep Space Nine we're talking about is Rapture. As Bajor's long-awaited Federation membership draws near, Ben Sisko takes inspiration from a painting of the lost Bajoran city of Bahala, recently returned from Cardassia. After being zapped in a free console accident, Sisko moves in full-time, neglecting his family and Starfleet duties, and uncovers the ruins in a matter of days. He's begun to see visions, and with the help of an orb experience, he realizes the gods are trying to tell him it's too soon for membership. He derails the signing ceremony and immediately collapses. Dr. Bashir operates and Sisko recovers, but the visions are gone. Rational but still unswayed, Sisko tells Admiral Watley that he can't remember what he saw, but he knows that at the time he was correct. What did you think of Rapture?
I forgot that you don't get to see his orb vision.
Yeah.
I was totally expecting this to be one of the orb vision episodes.
Yeah, there were no actual prophets. Which actually made me kind of suspect that there were any prophets to begin with in this episode.
Gasp!
But I guess we can talk about that. But yeah, I think overall, I don't remember loving this episode previous times I've watched it, but I didn't mind it this time. I thought it was pretty good. We get Cassidy Yates, which is always a pleasure. We get Kai Wynn, which is always a pleasure.
Yay! Rest in peace, honey.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, I mean, she's phenomenal as this character, a character you love to hate.
And deepening this character in this episode, which is good to see.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like that was one of the things I'm sure we'll talk about this, but like I feel how much was she manipulating the situation in this episode?
Mm-hmm. It could be two things.
Let's talk about Kai Wynn. I mean, do you think when we see her, she is already not only seemingly accepted Federation membership, but she has completely changed her mind on Sisko?
Well, I think she changes her mind on Sisko when he finds that cave. I think previous to that, she is like full on like ready to like throw shit down.
Yeah, she's not. Yeah, exactly. And I think that I don't know. One thing that I picked up on in this watch is, you know, she starts out same old Kai Wynn. I don't think Voyager. I don't think Bajor should join the Federation. Then Sisko finds the cave, finds the city, and I feel like she comes to Kira and she's like, yeah, oh, I was wrong to doubt the emissary. And I feel like this is a lot of play acting on her part. And
it's all opportunistic, right?
And
Sure.
It's super opportunistic. And I couldn't help but notice in the last scene that we have with her in the episode, like throughout the episode, she's referring to Sisko as the emissary. Oh, I was wrong to doubt the emissary, yada, yada, yada. In the last episode, once she got the result that she originally wanted, which is Bajor not joining the Federation, she starts calling him Captain Sisko again.
Oh, that's a great touch. That's really smart.
Yeah, so when she has a final scene with Kira where she's like, "Oh yeah, Captain Sisko," I'm like, "Oh, you."
Oh yeah, he doesn't have the visions anymore, so why would I like him anymore?
I love that discussion between her and Kira in the middle of the surgery too, where she's like, "We should not have let the Federation interfere with the Prophet's plans for Sisko." And it's like that is how she would see it. Mm-hmm. She's like, you know, with Kai Wynn, you're either in or out. And if she's going to make Sisko in, then that means, you know, Bashir and even Jake, I guess, would be an interloper in that.
Yeah. And like, I don't know. One thing that didn't make a ton of sense to me is I guess he needed to get to the orb, but why does Sisko think that he can go to Kai Wynn? And that's a good idea
because his brain is malfunctioning.
See, my if I'm putting on my tinfoil hat for a moment,
do it.
I'm gonna say that she did something, that she like dropped some kind of hint or planted the idea that, oh yeah, the prophets probably don't want Bajor to join the Federation, and Sisko in his delirium just rolled with it, and somehow Kai Wynn is responsible for breaking down these negotiations.
Well, I noticed, Watley asks Kai Wynn if they should proceed, and she is about to say yes. She's about to say, under the circumstances, I guess we should keep going. I feel like if she was still dedicated to scrubbing the ceremony, she would say no.
We should wait for the emissary or something. Yeah,
unless that's what she wants us to think.
Oh my god,
she is quite conniving.
She's layers of onion all the way down.
I guess I like that she has a moment of faith, though. So I sort of feel like messing with an orb experience would be beyond the pale for her. I think that's true. I totally believe she would blow up a school, but not an orb experience. That speech she gave Kira was quite interesting. You know, I was in prison for 5 years. I remember every beating I've had.
Yeah, but I retained my faith. Yeah, I do love that about her, and that the kind of deepening of her character in that, you know, all along you just think she's just here to be a bitch to everybody, and you know, we're kind of meant to see her as a villain, even though she's got all this depth. Like, she actually like believes in Bajor, and she believes she's doing everything right for Bajor. And you see that in this kind of episode where you see like, no, during the occupation she kept teaching the Bajoran faith, and they imprisoned her for it.
Yeah, I think at the same time, you know, I don't think that she is, you know, mustache twirlingly evil, which is something that I like. But I think that she is completely misguided a lot of the times, and ultimately makes choices, she uses the religion as an excuse to make a choice that will serve her.
That she would have made anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. She's selfish.
Yes.
She's so selfish.
The will of the prophets is really whatever she wants to happen.
Yeah, you can bend it however you want. You can interpret an orb experience for whatever way serves her best.
Yeah, and we find out much, much later in the show, spoiler territory here, that she has never had met the prophets. Like, she hasn't had a prophet interaction like some other people have.
Right.
She's felt slighted by that.
And then freaking Sisko just walks in here and gets all of them.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why she hates him so much. I mean, she says as much that, like, an alien comes here and, somehow has become the spiritual leader of Bajor when I'm the spiritual leader of Bajor.
What did you think of Sisko, the possessed guy?
Oh, he's nuts.
I mean, it's the most Avery Brooks.
He's not even acting.
No.
He's just him.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the most Avery Brooks has ever been, but at the same time, I'm like, no, he's been way more Avery Brooks than this, and still, this is an amazing level of Avery Brooks.
He's going full Close Encounters and making an obelisk out of his food because he's nuts.
He really looked more comfortable with him and that artifact than he does in most. Like when does Sisko relax? He relaxes with Jake, with family. He relaxes with a handful of old friends.
He was like lounging on floor.
It reminds you of like your like, I don't know if it's a man cave or something, but like he's out in the garage.
He's not fixing up a Harley, he's like recreating an ancient relic in the holodeck.
Yeah, or building a sail ship because
yeah, that's true. I guess
Sisko
the sail ship was his Harley in the garage.
I guess we are supposed to interpret that the panel explosion was the work of the gods somehow.
Ugh.
I'm sure Quark will argue that.
What the show seems to be saying about, I don't know if you want to say religion or if you want to say spiritual experiences. Like, whatever faith is, it's the thing that gets you operating it at clear-headedly at top condition,
until
you can just fire a
breaks your
phaser
brain.
somewhere.
Yeah, I mean,
until it breaks your brain. So you can just fire a phaser somewhere and discover.
Right.
That was really, he is damn lucky that worked out.
And that cave was stable enough to not collapse without that wall.
How inconsiderate though. Like, did he even tell anyone he was going searching in the caves? He didn't bring any Bajorans with him. He just took Cassidy, who doesn't give a shit.
This also speaks to his position as the emissary, too. Because up to this moment, he's been sort of trying to pretend it doesn't exist. But part of what's so eerie about this performance is he is suddenly at ease with it. He's like going to Bajorans and telling them that, like, your dad forgives you. Or your son forgives you. He is Jesus at that point.
Yeah, until the show literally makes him Jesus, because of course it does.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that I have the most trouble wrapping my brain around the Sisko character and just getting infuriated sometimes. And there's a line, I think Whatley says it. He says, "I knew we were in for trouble the moment the Bajorans called him emissary." And I say, yeah, he really shouldn't be both emissary and a Starfleet commander. Because the two kind of contradict each other in terms of where your allegiance is ever going to lie. It kind of breaks the Prime Directive a lot.
And yet he didn't seek this out. I think there was a Next Gen episode where like somebody discovers a phaser and they start to think Picard is God.
Oh, Who Watches the Watchers? Good episode.
Who Watches the Watchers? Thank you. Yeah. So that's what Starfleet wants to avoid. But because the Bajorans have said, and Kai Opaka, the most popular Bajoran, has said, we want a relationship with this man. Presumably, they have to accept it.
And Whatley says as much, right? At the end, he's like, "Yeah, I would totally have pulled you off of this assignment if it weren't for the fact that the Bajorans would be pissed."
What's wrong with the Bajorans being pissed? Because I've never thought the Bajorans should be in the Federation.
Yeah. But Picard wants it so bad.
Everyone wants that wormhole. That's the trick. That's the issue.
It's obvious that whatever happened to his brain like enhanced his connection with the prophets.
Well, he sees colors more
Yeah.
intensely.
Jesus, that fucking line. Even though they're wearing the drabbest costumes now. Damn it. There's my
Right,
question
that's
then, because,
true.
you know, giant spoiler if anyone cares. Sisko is half wormhole alien.
Yeah.
Is this a matter of his parentage kind of showing in what he's able to do now? It opened up that synapse of his brain, or like what can we say is the
Yes.
actual reason?
Yeah.
Because magic isn't going to
Well,
cut
if
it
it's
for me.
either it activated some innate prophet power that he's always had, and just was suppressed by his human biology, or it's like turned on his radio, Wi-Fi connection to the wormhole, and now he's getting the direct feed from the prophets.
Right, and they can see through time, or they experience time non-linearly,
That's
which
true.
makes sense. It's very Tralfamadorian of them. So I actually
Yes.
accept all of that just fine. It's when you start building a religion around it that I'm like, you fucking idiots.
Well, yeah, but that's the Bajorans, right? Like that's not, the wormhole aliens are, real. They're not like the prophets exist, and what is, and they can do things that to mere mortals would certainly appear to be godlike. They can send orbs that can let you see the future or travel through time and do all sorts of crazy stuff. So.
And they double down when you tell them it's actually wormhole aliens, and they'll say, that's true, because they're prophets. And you're like, cool,
Yeah.
thanks, guys.
I think it comes down to like what is the definition of like a deity in this scenario? Like is an alien that is indistinguishable from a god just a god? Like, right? Like
Oh, you're just bringing... This is just Devil's Due again with Ardra.
yeah, a little bit.
The TNG
I mean, well, see, like
episode.
Ardra was just using technology to fool people.
Right.
The wormhole aliens seem to actually have the power that they're wielding. It's not just like parlor tricks.
When you talk to them, they seem so disconnected and frankly really irritating. And yet they do care about Bajor. I mean, they've done enough. Sisko makes this claim himself. They have done enough. They have impacted it enough that they care vaguely about what goes on there.
I don't know if I
So-
can see proof of that.
To get Kira's perspective on this, last week, Sisko asks her to prove the prophecy scientifically, and she makes this claim. All right, clearly they can see through time. They communicated their knowledge to Bajoran prophet,
This was in
and
Destiny?
she says that's astrology science. This was Destiny.
Destiny.
Yes.
Got it.
So Kira's sort of doing intelligent design to an extent. But, I mean, the thing we never really find out is what are they even aware of?
Right?
They like Sisko. They're attached to Sisko.
Well, Sisko's their boy. Their
They
baby
s-
boy.
They are definitely aware of Bajor. They also have the power to, like, reroute an entire Dominion fleet and make it vanish. So there is that.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Is it a thing where, like, if they understood Bajor more, they would do even more omnipotent things than they do?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, the thing is, it all kind of breaks down when you get into this non-linear thing, right? Because
Mhm.
they don't look at Bajor as, oh, if we do this now, in 10 years, this other thing will happen. They
This
don't
is like
look.
Bill and Ted's
They
Excellent
don't.
Adventure.
They don't like. I don't think they have a concept of cause and effect. To them, everything is effect. So, for example, we know that Sisko is an actual child of a prophet. Like his mother was possessed by a prophet, and so he has prophet powers, and we understand that their whole purpose in doing that was to set up this showdown with the Pa-Wraith in the very end, right? Like this was all
Fake.
all these wheels were set in motion. But did they create the Sisko so that it could happen, or did that happen so they decided that they needed to make the Sisko
When you say they, do you mean the wormhole aliens or the writers of this show?
I mean the prophets, the wormhole aliens, because
it could be
because
both.
I don't know. I'm reminded of this that scene in The Matrix when Neo goes to see the Oracle, and he knocks over the vase, and she says, "Oh, would you have still knocked it over if I hadn't told you about it?" You know, there's no cause and effect there. Like, both events had to have happened in order for the vase to fall, right? Like, she had to tell him about it, then he had to bump into it. And it's sort of the same thing with the prophets, because the Sisko, he was assigned to Deep Space Nine by Starfleet. You know, the prophets didn't have anything to do with that.
But they knew, because they had time.
But he only exists because they created him, because he will later get assigned there by Starfleet and then go fight, the Power Wraith.
Yeah. It's that Bill and Ted moment when, it's like, oh, remember to go back and put a bucket here, and then the bucket falls on somebody. Oh, yeah, because they must have gone back and made the bucket happen. Mm-hmm.
Keanu Reeves,
Thanks,
always
Keanu.
Always doing this stuff,
Love
Can you imagine him as Sisko?
Helpful man.
Oh, my God.
Oh, boy, that's fascinating.
Yes.
I want to bring up one more thing before our brains explode.
One more thing
about this, because I happened earlier. I just happened to be watching a Red Letter Media review of Dune, and they brought up how in the Lynch version of Dune, what they did was they basically made Paul the chosen one, which is a little less evident in the book in the more recent movie. And they're like, him being the chosen one kind of takes away his agency, and made me think like, how does this apply to Sisko? Because now Sisko is basically a chosen one, has to act as the emissary, has to do everything for Bajor. What does that mean? And I was curious what you guys thought, just because I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. He's definitely sort of forced into this role by destiny, right? Like, he doesn't really have any choice.
He can't make choices anymore. Yeah. We make Jake make the choice, the poor thing.
He really spends the majority of the time fighting it. If there is less drama in some way, there is still drama in that, like, no, I don't want to do it.
I think by now, hasn't he kind of accepted it? I think that was in, like, I want to say a session? The one where he kind of accepts, like, right. No, I want to be emissary. It's got to be me.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably is the sort of Judeo-Christian thing where, like, the deity has a plan, and outside of that plan, they seem kind of remote and confusing.
Yeah, like, until I need you, you do what you want, but when I need you to get crucified on a cross, you'll know.
I mean, if you wanted to do the Jesus metaphor, I mean, presumably they created Sisko so that they could understand linear time.
Oh, that's interesting.
In a way that they could not before.
Because they know he's going to explain to them.
Right. They can talk to him, and he will tell them what is going on. Like, that makes the most sense to me in terms of what they might have wanted from Sisko.
God, let me tell you about baseball. You need to know this.
I want to know more about what Jake thinks of all this stuff. You know?
Oh yeah, we got some great moments from Sherlock Lofton too, because he's just excellent at the watch. Crying over his dad, being like, "I don't want to make this decision, but I want you to live," and I love him.
Like, his first line in this episode is like, "I hope I didn't burn the spaghetti," or whatever it is, and by the end he's like, "Will my dad live or die?"
Burn the spaghetti really down.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Sherlock Lofton as Jake Sisko is probably one of the all-time best, or one of the all-time better child actor evolutions that we see on television. When we first meet him in Emissary, he's just this young kid. I mean, and then we watch him grow up. Sherlock does a fantastic job from start to finish, I would say.
He's really good at that, like, teenage combination of, like, earnestness and awkwardness.
At the end of the day, he just wants to be a normal kid, have a relationship with his father, and he gets into trouble and makes bad choices sometimes, and gets into some weird pseudo-sexual relationship with an alien that's stealing his mojo or what.
we've all been there.
You know
though.
what you do as a teenager.
I love it when Cassidy walks in. It's like, oh, hello, Cassidy. I have a new girlfriend now. Meet Obelisk.
I have to say, like, I
jealous.
love Cassidy Yates. I love the story that we kind of get the conclusion to in this episode, which is her working with the Maquis, and she goes to jail because and Sisko sends her to jail because it's like his job. So I feel like that's a good conclusion to that story. That they're still in a relationship. They still have a lot of feelings for each other.
Yeah.
He didn't give her quarters away.
True. I'll say this though. The stage kiss that they did when she first walks into the holosuite was one of the worst I've seen, I think. Like it was so
notice.
like 1930s studio system era stage kiss I've ever seen. It was rough.
Well,
He's just that passionate.
He's got aliens on the brain. What can you do?
One thing I loved is like, Jake's like, so Cassidy's coming back, and he's like, yeah, okay. I don't know if I want to get with someone who was in jail for 6 months. And then he gets the visions and immediately just like plows right over it. Like, you're in prison, whatever. Let's go to Bajor. Like, I'm impressed by what a big deal this is not for them. It could have been really hard comparatively.
Yeah. I kind of wonder if he was, not wanting to, if his reticence at the beginning was about not wanting to still be with someone who'd been to jail versus him more worried that she was going to hate him or have resentment towards him for having put her in jail.
Right. I mean, all those would be concerns.
I always found it interesting, though, that considering how hard Sisko goes on Eddington, like how quick he is to forgive Cassidy's betrayal.
Well, Cassidy was caught and punished, and presumably Federation officers are like, she served her time. Time to bring her back to society.
I don't know. I think there's also like, is Sisko even thinking about that stuff when Cassidy is back? I think he's too fixated on let's deal with Obelisk stuff. I want to go play in the cave. I don't think it even registers in his brain. This is Cassidy instead of like, this is someone who I can bring to the cave.
Yes.
If anyone
definitely.
else had walked in, Quark, do you want to go to a cave with me? Yes.
I think that's sort of alluded to in the final scene they have where she's like, oh, we never had our welcome back dinner with Cassidy. And then Cassidy's like, yeah, welcome back, Ben. or welcome back, both of us.
We talk about Close Encounters. And that movie famously, like, part of the undercurrent of Richard Dreyfuss trying to get to space subconsciously is that his family is portrayed as sort of sad and dysfunctional and dull. And it's not quite the same here. I don't know quite how I feel about where the Sisko family is at the end of this episode. Do you think Sisko resents Bashir or even Jake for making the decision that they made?
I don't know if I'd call it resent. I would say he mourns it.
Yeah,
more
that's good.
Because you can say like, you can't put this kind of decision on an 18-year-old boy. That's just cruel.
Definitely.
You can't blame the doctor for doing what the 18-year-old boy told him to do. Hippocratic oath, all this stuff.
Yeah, I also think that that Sisko, in his right mind, not under the influence of prophets, would agree with that choice.
He's a rational guy.
And he wouldn't want Jake to lose another parent.
Yeah,
good
exactly.
God.
How awful would that be? Jesus.
Jake really takes all this stuff really well. And he's like sad, like, I'm sorry, I can't do this the way you want. I need my dad back.
This is the same character who in The Visitor, like, goes out of his way to study how to get his dad back from the ether space, and kills himself when his father, is appearing in the final scene and all this thing. And yeah, he's gonna want his dad around.
I guess Siskos are really stubborn, and they think big.
Have you seen Joe? Yeah.
Any last whacks of the bat for Rapture?
Oh, I was also going to say Kira has come a long way in her development, which is a lovely, lovely thing to see. And of course, we adore Nana. And she says at the beginning, 5 years ago, I wouldn't be celebrating the Federation taking Bajor, but now I'm into it because of all the development that I've done. And I'm like, yes!
But here's the thing.
Yes.
Bajor is so dysfunctional as Bajoran people are fucking lovely, but their politics and how their theocracy is just.
Don't forget they're yelling at clouds.
They have to go yell at clouds every now and again. Bajor needs some serious work politically before it's ready for the.
They do have a democracy, though. I mean, they got First Minister Shakar. You know, they got.
Yeah, who couldn't be fucked to come to this thing.
Yeah. I'm out of you guys. They're certainly too xenophobic still. It just sort of makes you wonder what the Federation bar is. Like, presumably you don't have to be perfect to join either.
True.
I noticed Watley remarked that they were going to absorb the Bajoran militia into Starfleet.
Oh,
and that sounds like a terrible idea.
I can't picture Odo in a Starfleet uniform. I just won't do it. I got one more last whack for this one.
Do it.
Why is Quark so excited about Bajor joining the Federation? Because last I checked, the Federation doesn't use money.
Oh.
He thinks that he's going to get all this new business, and I'm like, yeah, but no one's going to be spending any money because they don't have it.
Well, do the Federations not use money, or do humans?
I always assumed it was the Federation as a whole did not
too.
have currency.
Yeah.
It's also wildly inconsistent when you look across the series, like how much they have to use money at any given point. Like, Jadzia bets constantly playing Tongo, and she's got money from somewhere. And like the Federation folk that come to Quarks, they do have to pay Quark.
I think that my headcanon is that Starfleet officers get some kind of a stipend for spending outside of Starfleet, but I don't think that your average Starfleet citizen is necessarily, or Federation citizen is necessarily having a lot of income to go gambling.
They must use money that they don't care about.
Maybe it's like a
pretty sweet deal
thing or something.
They just replicate it. It's fine.
Either way, it's not Latinum, and Quark is going to be very sad when that dries up.
Battlestar Galactica, Kobol's Last Gleaming, Part 2. When Roslin admits to telling Starbuck to take the Raptor, Adama decides to terminate her presidency. He sends Ty and Apollo to lead a strike force to Colonial 1 with the intent of arresting her, but Roslin won't budge. Suddenly Apollo flips, saying this is a coup and he won't take part in it. To prevent bloodshed, Roslin relents, and both she and Apollo are taken to the brig. Boomer comes back from her mission of successfully blowing up the base star, and she accepts congratulations from a grateful Adama, and then she shoots him at point-blank range. What did you think of Kobol's Last Gleaming?
Well, first of all, hold on. I got to put on my nerd glasses for a second. Carl, in your description, you said that Rosalind allowed Starbuck to take the Raptor, but she actually took the Raider.
Oh, sorry. You're quite correct.
There's the Raptor, there's the Raider, and there's
Viper,
the other thing.
The little X-Wings
the Viper.
are the Vipers.
Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Yeah. Good, great. We got them straight now.
I don't know. I think that this is a phenomenal episode. I remember watching this when it first aired, and it as a season finale cliffhanger, it's bar none one. It is.
It's such a good
this is
place
best
to
of
end.
both worlds level cliffhanger engineering in this episode.
I don't know if in 500 years of Star Trek, I don't know if you have ever seen the bridge that damaged and chaotic as the CIC was in the last 60 seconds of this episode. I mean, I just keep thinking of Adama's blood streaming onto the table.
Maybe Voyager Year of Hell, but not much else.
Adama getting shot is obviously a huge cliffhanger, but also the other major element here is that Adama just before getting shot had just done a coup. So that's also up in the air.
Frankly, it's what Watley should have done.
Yeah.
I could have your commission for this, Roslin, and I will.
Done. Check it off the list. Don't let Bay join the Federation.
I listened to the Ronald D. Moore podcast on this episode, and he remarked that it was revealed in a deleted scene that Apollo had been the one to design a security force for the president that was independent of the military.
Oh, interesting.
So this is all his fault, as is often the case. What do you think of Apollo in this episode?
I gotta say, yeah. So Lee Adama, this guy is okay. He gets all on his horse, saying, "Oh, we're not going to sacrifice democracy for, for whatever it was." When they had the big standoff on the president's ship on Colonial One,
right?
And he points a gun at Ty, and all I'm thinking this whole time is, wait a minute, you're the one who pushed for elections. Like, why are you suddenly so incredibly loyal to Roslin? Like, honestly, it just seems like, for me, like, he's just most loyal to whoever he's spoken to last.
I think it's that he wants to be the most ethical character on the show, but that means he's constantly flipping sides based on who he thinks is being most ethical right now, when in reality, the most ethical character on the show is Hilo.
Yes, everyone agrees on that.
Yeah.
But if Tom Zarek had walked in that moment and was like, "Yeah, shoot Roslin," I think Lee would have done that.
I mean, the other reason he did this is that in Kobol's Last Gleaming Part 1, he was in a boxing match with his father, and his father said, "You need to go on your instincts more."
Yeah, you need to lose control.
You need to lose control.
Yeah.
I've never found that life is improved when I lose control and go off my instincts, but whatever,
Yeah, I think he took that lesson in a way that Adama did not intend.
You can only lose control the way I tell you to lose control.
Exactly. But this is sort of Lee's fate, isn't it? Like, he could make a brilliant speech. He could make like the "I Have a Dream" speech. He could make the Gettysburg Address. And on his way off, he would like glare at his dad and go, "See, Dad?" And like all his dignity would crumble. He's just always the perpetual sort of teenager. In good as well as bad sentences. He aims for high ground that he just trips over and falls off of.
I don't know. I love watching him struggle throughout the whole show, so it's always a good time.
It is fun.
No, I mean, I like his character. I just think that I don't think he's quite grown up yet. And I don't know if he ever grows up fully throughout the run of the show, but I guess we'll find out.
What do you think about how Roslin is handling this?
I think one of the fascinating things about the Roslin character is when she just submerges herself into faith real fast. Mm-hmm. Like once she has, I think it's the vision last week where she sees the Kobol something or other in a map.
Yeah.
And then just basically says, "Well, I'm running with this. I'm on drugs and I'm seeing visions all the time. And you know what? The gods are real and they're talking to me now. So we're just going to run with it." In a way that Sisko, for comparison, like Sisko fought back for many seasons about what faith is and does he have any. Whilst Roslin is all in like an episode.
Well, and in the case of Sisko, the gods, the wormhole aliens are real, right? Like they're there, they exist, and like that's scientific. Whereas here, the gods are much more, not present if they exist at all
until they do.
Prophecies and visions are much more like magic in this show, I think, than on Deep Space Nine.
I'd agree with that, and it's the thing I can't. It's the thing I stand the least about this show is how it just decides, you know what? Sure, things are magic sometimes, and we're not gonna make it sci-fi.
Well, from Roslin's point of view, it certainly is magic to us, but from her point of view, I mean, she's seeing this with her own eyes. Obviously the preacher has gone all in, and that helps. And she's also already sort of gone on this journey because she became president and already kind of had to follow her instincts there. So now she might just be going, well, here's just step 2, follow some more instincts. But that still leaves us in confusing territory. doesn't it? Because there is no question to me that this is like one of the worst decisions anyone could make.
Yeah, especially at this moment in time when, okay, we need to go take out this base star that's guarding Kobol.
Yeah, that's the pressing need.
Send Starbuck to okay, if you need to do the Caprica, go get the arrow, fine. Do that next week. Let's take care of the base star situation now, because that's the emergency. So I don't blame Adama for like losing his shit and doing the coup in this scenario, because clearly Roslin was not making the best decisions here.
In part 1, they talk about possibly settling on Kobol, but I feel like if they settle anywhere, they're going to get blown up. Yeah,
you can only settle somewhere if the Cylons don't know you're there.
And they will find you,
Yes.
They always do.
Because there's still probably spies in the fleet.
They could just turn around and suddenly shoot the captain right now.
Yeah, I don't think settling on Kobol is a good idea. I'm glad that kind of the Cylons make that decision for them by, being there.
Does it help, Carl, knowing that the writers don't have a plan? Like, I listened to that Ronald Moore podcast, too, and it's just very clear, like, we're just winging it every day, which strikes me as absolutely absurd.
Talking about the plan, I think the most generous interpretation of the plan is the Cylons' plan is to get pregnant.
Jesus.
And that plan is fulfilled. And then, as we see with Baltar and Six here, to sort of protect them and shepherd them and have them be the generation to come. I guess that is a plan. And yet, but then for 2 more years, they kept saying, and they have a plan in the opening credits, and people were like, what's the plan?
Did they take that out of the credits at some point or no?
Yeah, they changed the whole intro. It's like...
They changed it to, and they're winging it every day.
Well, for the first half of season 4, it's about the final Cylons, and then it changes to something else.
Well, what I found remarkable is guest of the show Chris and friend of you. He was on the Flesh and Bone episode, and you can sort of hear him like he put together like every piece of where the season was going. I mean, this show is at least remarkably like thematically consistent. Like they have managed to convey a lot while definitively saying very little. Because remember, Baltar in the miniseries, he is specifically asked, "Do you want children?" And he says no.
Yeah.
Well, he's going to have some now.
Well, Battlestar is among the earlier, very popular shows that did a soap opera in space style of storytelling. I get like Babylon 5 and Deep Space Nine notwithstanding, we expect for a show that's structured like this to have an overarching plan from the start. But I feel like at this time it was somewhat unusual. Like I feel like Babylon 5 might be the only show that actually did it to this point where it's like, I have a 5-year plan for this show. But I don't quite fault the writers for not having a full season or a full series Bible that from start to finish. But I definitely feel like this first season and like the seasons in and of themselves do pretty well at keeping it together. The other thing about this, this is before streaming. This is before DVR by and large. Like TiVo, I think existed, but not a lot of people had them. You had to watch this or record, or use, a VCR or whatever. But most people were watching this live. So this was like, stuff you talked about at work the next day. It was appointment TV. It was an event. So
big week for Boomer.
Yeah.
God.
She looks so shocked.
I want to know something though. Do you think those other Sharons, do you think they all got together and were like, hey, Boomer's coming. Let's get naked and freak her out?
Yes, this is the question. It reminded me of that Simpsons joke where Dr. Hibbert is like, we had a discussion about the funniest way to reveal that you had 8 children.
Yeah.
And
like, why did they have to be like, we never see any other time in the show before this moment or since, as far as I can think, of Cylons just hanging out on their base star naked together. Like, they're always wearing clothes, except like what, you know, I don't understand why all these Sharons show up and they're all nude.
I'm sure it was someone that had that vision of, we're gonna see them all line up. You can only light from like above the boobs
very convenient
up
shadows
because,
on the space star.
Like, that is not how any lighting works.
No.
God damn it! Like, there's no fucking way. Like, how else is Boomer getting lit? What is even happening?
I believe that there is no way they didn't know that like Boomer was coming. So they were like, okay, how do we overwhelm Boomer? How do we rattle her cage? Let's get naked.
Yeah.
I mean, it was basically just probably a bong hit that Ronald D.
Yeah, that's true.
In the show.
But on
Yeah, it takes me so far out of it though, because of that horrible lighting that they have to do, because they have to make sure when she's in the distance, because they're all Grace Park over and over and over again. They had to make her shoot that scene like 50 times.
Yeah.
To get all the different compositing together, and it was so fucking expensive for something that looks so distracting.
Yeah. Right.
Going back to something you mentioned just a moment ago, I think that those transponders are absolutely bullshit, and that Gata doesn't know what he's talking about, because 100% the Cylons knew that Raptor was there and that Boomer was in it. 100%.
Yes.
Also, side note, 100% Boomer sabotaged the nuke the nuke launching system.
I thought the same thing.
So that they would have to board the ship. 100%.
I believe
it's like
that.
What was the other episode we did? Water, where she sabotages something and doesn't
she gets
recall
active.
it. Yeah,
she gets activated, does something fucked up, blacks out, and doesn't remember it. But yeah, so I think she 100% just sabotaged the bomb so that they would have to board the ship, and 100% the Cylons knew it was them, because those transponders are what those transponders actually are. I think is, hey, we're colonials with Cylon tech. Because I also think that they knew that was Starbuck in the Raider, because when she gets to the museum, there's already a 6 there waiting for her.
Yes.
So 100% they knew.
And she calls her Starbuck.
Yeah. They knew what was going on. Those transponders, they're like baby monitors, you know?
They kind of look like baby monitors. Like, even under optimal circumstances, it's sort of hard to imagine how, like, okay, they got the transponder, but they also, you know, presumably they need to give clearance codes. Presumably they need someone to tell them, okay, go fly in now. We're opening the doors. I guess it was just lucky Boomer was a Cylon herself. Yeah, and it's also lucky that Adama happened to decide to send her on that particular mission.
Even though she was recovering in medbay.
Yes.
From a what I'm sure would be a much more like difficult injury than what they kind of laid on.
How is she not in more pain after blowing off part of her face?
Yes.
How is she physically talking?
Right.
That's Cylon resiliency.
We don't see the actual gunshot.
That's true.
I did wonder, like, what Adama's got to know. I mean, maybe he's just distracted, but it seems like it would enter his mind that, like, his pilot is suicidally depressed.
Well, yeah, it's acting very strange.
Part of me was like, is he deliberately sending the suicidal person on a suicide mission? Like, Adama. But yeah, I don't know. I think Boomer had a lot going on this episode, obviously. I gotta say, though, you know, Grace Park, some of her acting in this was pretty soapy, and not in the best way. Especially the scene between her and Hilo, when they sort of had that confrontation. And she's like, "Oh, you know, so we had something I really felt like we had something together," and yada yada yada. I some of her acting choices really took me out of it, and it felt very melodramatic.
What I found interesting about that scene is she was sort of trying to be the reasonable one. Hilo's sort of in the right, but she's like, but beyond that, I want you to know I felt something. And it's like I was legitimately surprised she said that. It didn't seem like Cylons could feel that not too long ago. I must say, Grace Park in part 1 was really phenomenal.
It's true. The scene with her and the gun, and the scene with Baltar in part 1 were very good.
I think also the pacing of that scene, because it's clear they're just waiting around, so the pacing is just like, we just have to kill time.
Yeah. And that is the weird emotional state of where, he's got a gun on her, but he's got nowhere to go. This is an oddly paced episode, although I'm not sure that's a bad thing. I do sort of feel like I wish we could get a little bit more from some parts of it. You know what I really loved was Duala's and Billy's lines. Like these two side characters who are completely invested in their different bosses and have not really had that much interesting dialogue throughout the season, even though it's obviously like fun to have the young lovers around. Is he going to do this? Is she going to make him do this? Like that was, I love that.
Yeah.
I like that too. That's a really good comparison.
Aside from Billy, I was confused. I don't know why so many people are so fiercely loyal to Roslin. I don't. It seemed like I understand Billy because he's been with her for a long time. I understand the priest lady because she's religious and she's bought into this, but the other people on especially Lee, as I already mentioned, but I think the other people, I feel like it is very strange that people are so fiercely loyal to Roslin.
I was thinking about that as well. Like this is kind of the hardest stumbling block for me with this plot. I had forgotten that Roslin was the one who called the fleet together in the first place. She was the one who sent out the distress call and told all those 250 ships to go to Ragnar.
Yeah, and she was the one that insisted to Adama that they not try to fight.
And beyond that, I just think this society is just more overtly religious. Clearly, there are believers and non-believers to an extent, but they may not teach religious history as separate from history, the way we are used to.
Well, yeah, I guess in a similar way with the Bajorans, although their gods aren't like corporeal, or I guess the prophets aren't corporeal either, but the gods of the colonials aren't having so much of a direct influence in the day-to-day lives as say the prophets are in the day-to-day lives of the Bajorans.
Right.
But some of it is history, like the Arrow of Apollo, the Kobol.
Yeah, leaving
like
Kobol.
that stuff that they must know has had to have happened historically.
Yes. And nobody seems to have any, whether they are for getting the arrow or not, no one seems to have any doubt of what it is. Like there seems to be no case of like competing claims to what is or is not the Arrow of Apollo. Like we are all agreed what it is and where it is.
Yeah, it's just a matter of how is it important right now versus just surviving the day to day.
One more thing on the stoned Ronald D. Moore. Last time you were on the show, Ames, you mentioned that he pitched like a paper shortage and everyone made fun of him.
Yeah, right.
It apparently is not uncommon for him to pitch stuff and then he gets a lot of pushback. In this particular episode, he was thinking about how the season could end. And he was thinking about having 6 lead Baltar, into that opera house. And suddenly you hear a sound. And the sound is a Jimi Hendrix song.
Wink.
And then 6 turns a corner, and you see a guy, and it's Dirk Benedict, the original Starbuck from the original Battlestar Galactica.
And he was going to be what?
And he says,
God.
Yes,
he was going to literally be God.
God.
I read this, and God damn it.
Hello, I'm God.
I'm so glad they didn't, because I would have stopped fucking watching.
Exactly.
I'm actually, I kind of regret that they didn't have Dirk Benedict somewhere in the show as some character. I just think it would have been fun. They got our original Apollo back.
Sure.
It would have been great to have our original Starbuck back as well, to do even just a guest spot. But yeah, not as God.
Yeah, especially after his one contribution to this was write like a very sexist essay. Like if he comes onto the show, I'd want to see him like pay. I'd want to see him like.
Airlock.
Oh wait, did he?
Yeah.
Did he actually? I don't know about this history.
Oh boy. Yeah, he wrote a essay about how mad he was that they were turning Starbuck into a girl in the new season.
Oh, okay. Fuck that then.
Before it debuted.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah,
I don't want him on the show anymore.
I could go over the points, but you already know them.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah.
Does he see this as an attack on masculinity? Yes. Does he see this as a Hollywood plot to make men weak? Yes. Does he?
Oh God, yeah.
Does he feel like he is being personally targeted for his acting in the 70s? Yes.
His acting in the 70s was garbage.
We're better stand clear, Dirk Benedict.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. Forget it. I don't want him on the show.
Can we still airlock him?
Yeah. I feel like if any criticism could be leveled on the casting of this show, it's the fact that they whitewashed Ty.
That is interesting. It does kind of suck to go from two black male characters in the 70s Battlestar to zero here.
Yeah, and like really, D is D like the only sort of main character that's black in the show for a long time at least, I think. Yeah.
I will say the sort of background characters are more diverse than I had remembered, but they're not as diverse as, certainly as what you see in the Star Wars sequel trilogy now, or even arguably as much as the 70s Battlestar, which did have a fair amount of gender equality.
Yeah, but all the female characters were garbage.
but they were pilots. Like they did have Athena.
Yeah, I only think of the episode where it's like, we don't have enough pilots. Let's train the girls to be pilots. And it's just the most like, let's bring up as many little misogynistic asides as we can and make it like a whole show.
It was terrible.
Fucking
but
hated it.
It's contemporaneous with the original Star Wars trilogy, where you had one female character, admittedly a good female character, but there was just one.
I believe they did film women pilots who were cut out of Return of the Jedi. So this was a conscious decision by somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Very very
getting
sad.
back to this though, with having this Starbuck who we love. And I thought her acting when she sees Sharon on Caprica was fucking amazing.
That look of like,
that I must kill her. Why are you stopping me from killing her? And she goes nuts.
It's when he says no, she's pregnant, and she just has this dumbfounded look on her face. It was perfect, and she held it for like 3 seconds, and it was amazing.
It's like they can get pregnant too.
Hilo, what did you do?
Yeah.
Something that bothered me a little bit about that scene is that Starbuck doesn't assume or evidently even suspect that Hilo is a Cylon, because
I didn't think of that.
I think she was probably acting on instinct. Like I think her first instinct was like, Hilo, awesome.
Yeah.
And then when she sees Sharon and realizes what that means. But I mean, you're right. She
Hilo,
should be
awesome.
subsecting.
Please help me off the ground.
Right. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like it would have been interesting if there had been a moment or some acknowledgement of like, wait, Cylon? You? Me? No. Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen you at any of the meetings.
Yeah, it's a nice touch that when Sharon on Caprica is talking about, the arrow will help us go to Earth, and Hilo it's never even occurred to him that Earth could be a thing, which is a thing we've been talking about for the whole show since episode 1, very early. And Hilo's just learning now, oh yeah, we do have a backup plan, don't we?
And he doesn't seem to believe. Like he must be on the atheist or agnostic side too. So I think that fits. But I have to, this does sort of remind me of I think Adama screwed up because he was the one who started the Earth myth, but he doesn't seem to have any kind of progress update. Like he doesn't like, if I were him, I would have done like a monthly Earth report. Or I would have been like, hey
we're
crew,
on the way.
We're on the way. Hey crew, we found this prophecy, wink wink, and we need help trying to figure out how to interpret it. Why don't we all get together? It'll be a group thing. Like you can't just say I know Earth and then not take them there. And this is something, rightly or wrongly, that Roslin seems to intuitively understand. It's not a place, it's a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Rosalind's also living on borrowed time at the moment.
Yeah, that's right.
So she's like, well, I guess this is, as long as I'm around, we are going in this direction. No promises what happens later.
Okay. So Boomer
Yeah.
puts 2 in the old man at the end. Now, obviously she's just tried to murder him and, possibly has murdered him. We don't know yet. But are people going to assume that she's a Cylon or assume that she's a Rosalind loyalist?
Oh,
because we don't really have any evidence that she's a Cylon. She passed Baltar's exam. So she might just be someone who's really pissed about this coup, for all we know.
People have linked her with the Cylons before, though. They had that hate graffiti on her locker. I think the connection has been made. But, I guess I don't really remember what the next sequence of events is. I believe we're headed for like 5 or 6 episodes of pure hell.
Yes, chaos.
As I recall. But I guess it depends on what she says. Roslin has at least specifically surrendered to avoid bloodshed, even though she managed to look cool and probably gained some followers while she was doing it. But I think I would believe at this point the Cylons are still the main baddies in most people's opinion. They would know then that the Cylon detector is faulty.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes, Baltar's been found out.
Damn it, Baltar. Oh, speaking of Baltar, the other thing I wanted to bring up, especially because I know our theme this week is visions.
Yes.
When Baltar, and now we're seeing Roslin also kind of having visions, how do we explain why? Like, it's always just been like assumed, like, oh yeah, Baltar just has this mind six around who like follows him around, shows him stuff, shows him a crib with a baby that doesn't exist. Interesting. What is actually happening with them?
This is definitely a new direction for the 6th character too. She is a flat out prophet in this one.
Yeah, I've seen her called an angel. I've seen her called a succubus. I've seen like people try to explain, and none of it makes any sense to me. So I bring it to you guys.
And they don't. I think we're not supposed to know. I guess I have always sort of believed in the some version of the chip in your head theory. The nature of Head 6 is one of those things that they sort of artfully chose not to explain, which I kind of hate. But what she says about having a role in God's plan seems to be basically true. I've been interested in this because Caitlin and Chris have also expressed that they're sort of tired of the frequent uncomfortable sex scenes, and they asked whether they would be continuing throughout the whole series. And I assured them that it would get more complicated soon.
Oh, that's
at least more nuanced.
It shifts to something else that's equally nuts.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the next episode they have to watch is Tie Me Up, Tie Me
Oh
Down.
no! So God!
They'll still have to suck it up for a while.
Wow. I feel like this show is an interesting case where it seems like it could be hard sci-fi. We're or close to it. I guess it's not technically. We got FTL, so it can't be strict definition of hard sci-fi.
Yeah, there's no aliens.
But there's no aliens.
That much we know.
They try to do things sort of by the book. But I think at the end of the day, the show is actually a supernatural fantasy as well. And I'm not above saying that Head 6 is supernatural, right? Like, so I don't need the chip in the head to be real, or for it to be, just Baltar going crazy. Although I think that the fact that she has a baby now kind of rules that out anyway. But I will, so I'm okay with the idea that, maybe 6 is some sort of supernatural being that is talking to Baltar and is just taking the form of someone that he knows
and letting him have these visions. That's interesting because I know like the religious connotations of the whole show harken back to the original Battlestar Galactica, which was made by Glenn A. Larson, who was a very avid Mormon who just basically just made a Mormon
Kobol?
show.
Yes.
Kolob. Kobol? Kolob.
Gasp! You know, the original title for the original Battlestar, it was going to be a series of Bible stories in space called Adam's Ark. Not at all on the nose.
Oh, Christ.
70s sci-fi is the best.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like, that's like a holdover because as far as I know, the people responsible for this show are not particularly known for writing religious stuff. I mean, Ronald D. Moore certainly isn't, other than Deep Space Nine, I guess.
You know, I've said the 70s Battlestar was basically written like a bunch of church plays.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it really is just for people to like, you could imagine like Timmy getting up and playing a Dama that week. Like, it really is instructional. I can't tell whether I am watching them fall under like a religion that will sort of help sustain them, or whether I'm watching them fall for QAnon.
Ooh, yeah.
You know?
Oh,
True.
And I really...
You know what would fix it for me a little bit?
What?
You know what would fix it for me a little bit is if their gods weren't just literally the Greek gods. Because
Right.
that strikes me as... It makes no sense.
The implication, I would say, at this point in the show is that if Earth is actually an offshoot of Kobol, then presumably the original Earthlings brought the gods of Kobol with them, which became, like the
Right.
Greek pantheon.
Life here began out there.
Yes.
Like the 70s Battlestar, I'm sure like name checks the theory that like aliens built the pyramids.
Oh, yeah. Big.
And, like all that.
Their helmets looked like sphinx heads.
All that kind of colonialist stuff where it's like, oh, this thing is impressive. It must have been done by aliens. Like the original Battlestar was steeped in it. I think the motto of this version is all of this has happened before, and all of it will happen again. Like, I don't think it's saying aliens built the pyramids. I think it's saying we all come from some place that we would not recognize necessarily. Right. I don't know.
And I think it would be interesting once you get through the entire series, to sort of deconstruct how that plays out. Like, what is the thesis of this show with regards to how it relates to real life, or is it just completely its own fantasy?
Which one is the Jesus? Because I can say, because Jake and I are doing a full watch, so many Jesuses in this show.
Right, competing Jesuses.
Yeah. I know who my pick is for Jesus of this show, but I won't say it.
Well, we'll find out in due time on BattleSpace 9. These episodes have been Rapture and Kobol's Last Gleaming, Part 2, The Theme is Visions. Who wins, in your opinion? Who did it better this week?
That's a tough call. I gotta give it to Kobol's Last Gleaming, based solely on the last act of the episode.
The last scene.
There's a couple good scenes. I think everything from like, the coup and the, despite the stupid naked-Sharons, I liked the scene on the base star.
We didn't talk about the Starbucks 6 fight,
yeah,
which is
that was a good
excellent.
Fight.
That was cool. Yeah,
so well
fight.
choreographed.
Yeah.
And they did their own stunts, and I love that.
That, what I was going to say about that, Starbuck is really on the back foot that entire fight. Like, Tricia Helfer is a monster in that. I was really impressed.
That's that Cylon strength.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think I'm also going to give it to Battlestar this week, because I was having the thought about the conundrum that Sisko has when he's having visions and being the emissary is usually an internal one. It's usually like, what do I believe? What do I think is going to be right? It's all about him. And like most of Deep Space Nine, it's him accepting that he's the emissary. And it doesn't usually have a ton of effect for the rest of the whole world or the whole quadrant or various quadrants. Whilst in Battlestar, Roslin starts throwing prophecy around, and everyone is affected immediately.
Yeah.
And it becomes this whole force that guides the rest of the show, instead of just a force that guides one particular character.
Literally, her decisions affect the entire human race as far as they're concerned. You know?
Yeah, it really goes head on really quickly. I would also say that Battlestar is better at showing the kind of mindset under which people would go to that way of thinking. Like it's always one thing with this show consistently. Like Battlestar is just better at portraying like desperate faith and enduring in the face of like accidents. Like it is always a little hard for people to believe that accidents can happen in the Star Trek world. But Battlestar Galactica every week. I started asking which one was better each week as kind of a lark. I didn't really take it seriously, and then I found I liked how people answered it. I also thought it brought up some kind of interesting additional remarks.
Yeah, I've liked it too, Carl.
And the final score of BattleSpace 9, Deep Space Nine versus Battlestar Galactica is Deep Space Nine 7, Battlestar Galactica 7.
Whoa!
Tied season.
Wow! Oh, that's perfect.
amazing.
And that's beautiful. I think that's a beautiful
great.
thing.
Oh, who did you vote for this week, Carl?
It's weird, to consider this episode by episode. I sometimes wonder if it gives kind of a unnatural advantage to Deep Space Nine, which is more self-contained. But the fact
you're also picking which Deep Space Nine,
right.
whilst these ones you're just doing all of them.
Right.
So there's that too.
Right. But I feel like Battlestar's power is in how much stuff can happen at once, and I feel like that kind of balances the scale. We have literally balanced the scale on this tied season. This is also the string of Battlestar episodes that I sort of feel like everybody likes. I feel like the show gets more complicated, and like maybe the conversations get more interesting as the show goes on, but it never will quite be like it has been again with watching Six beat up Starbuck for the first time.
Well, I also think like the later seasons, if I'm not mistaken, are a bit longer. I think they really go to like 19 or 20 episodes.
Yes.
And I think that
that's
like
true,
they got some filler in there.
They do.
So there's definitely like I'm just thinking of a couple season 2 episodes where I'm like, oh yeah, you're gonna have to talk about that one. This season benefits both from like being relatively short, like there wasn't a ton of filler, concise.
Mm-hmm.
And like still having the afterglow of the miniseries.
Yeah, and the characters are all still very fresh. Like, I know, like, they're developing all very slowly, and there will come a point where some of the characters, like, their development just kind of takes a left fucking turn. But right now, I think they're all, like, we're learning about them, and everything we learn about them is interesting because it's new.
Yes, and it's such a singular time to be living through as well. Like, I sort of feel like they're getting to know themselves in a way. Thank you for being on this show. Is there anything you want to plug?
Thank you again for inviting us back, and we hope to get the opportunity to talk about another future shows. We'd like to plug, I guess, Star to See Her By, which is our podcast. It's a Star Trek podcast. We're watching all of Star Trek from beginning to end, and we're currently in the middle of Voyager.
You just covered Alien and Aliens.
Oh yeah,
too,
that's true. Yeah, we also
exciting.
in addition to Star Trek, obviously that's our main thing, but we occasionally will branch out and do usually like a movie. So we've covered a lot of like the Verhoeven films. We've covered Aliens and Alien, various other things, Galaxy Quest naturally. We've also taken a couple of breaks to cover some non-Star Trek content. We did Firefly and
all the Star Wars.
We did the Star Warses. So yeah, definitely.
So we'll see you in a few months. We hope you have enjoyed the season. If you have, please tell your friends, and please give us lots of reviews on iTunes and the other podcast doohickeys. Please also follow us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. We are BS9 Podcast. Thank you very much. And remember, don't get killed and then have your blood all runned out on the flight.
Oh, God.
Good night.